Does the Shapeshifter technology on Canyon's new Strive CFR give it an ace up its sleeve that puts it a step ahead of the competition in the enduro scene? I think it might just do, but it's not perfect. Stay tuned to find out why. Hey, what's up guys? Robert here, and beside me we have got Canyon's Strive CFR. To cover the key details, this is Canyon's carbon fiber only enduro race machine, crafted to attack Enduro World Series trails. It's available in 2 spec levels only, the underdog spec with some slightly cheaper but still absolutely race ready components, or the full bling Strive CFR you see next to me here with carbon race face cranks, Kashima coated suspension, really the works. But still, critically, a reasonably affordable price tag for such a high-spec bike of £6,000 or $7,300. As you'd expect with a Canyon bike these days, they've really covered all the details to make sure that this bike is going to last and survive the test of time on the racetrack. But if you want to read all about that kind of stuff, you should head to the website and check out the article. We're just going to focus on the key points and really how it performs out on the trail in this video. Let's briefly touch on the geometry numbers before we head on to the ride impressions. The Shapeshifter tech on the Strive CFR allowed Canyon to push the geometry numbers firmly into the downhill realm, so it carries a really slack 63-degree head tube angle, a slammed 36mm bottom bracket drop. Canyon also pushed the reach numbers really long on this bike, so the size small starts at 455mm, the medium goes up to a 480, and for the large and extra large sizes, you're over a 500mm number. Each size does come with a length adjustable headset cup, so you can add or subtract 5mm from those figures just to tune it ever so slightly to your preferences. But there's no getting away from the fact that this is a long bike, which meant that I, at 6'2", ended up testing the size medium, which is kind of crazy, but as long as you select the right size for you, then it shouldn't become an issue. Obviously that Shapeshifter tech then allows you to steepen up, firm up the bike, knocking 1.5 degrees off of the head tube and the seat tube angles, or adding to them, steepening them just to make it more agile, raising the bottom bracket by 15mm to give you more pedal clearance, and then of course firming up and reducing the amount of travel, which all adds up to a much more pedal friendly bike. How does all that add up on the trail? Well, you better stay tuned for the ride impressions as we take this CFR out onto the trail. All right, so let's talk about how the Canyon Strive rides. Well, there is the most important thing, of course, the descending. So let's start on that. And it's clear from the get-go when you're in that descend mode that the Canyon Strive is just absolutely made to eat up the rough, the gnar, the chunky descents. Because they have that Shapeshifter technology, which means that they can create the second mode for the climbing, for the pedaling. They don't have to compromise on the downhill mode as much. So you've got the slack 63-degree head angle, you've got the really low 36mm BB drop, so you feel really safe and planted and stable and low slung in the bike with that slack front end, giving you all of the sort of high-speed stability that you could want. This thing absolutely rips around the corners so well, but because it still has that short rear end, relatively short, it retains a level of agility. You can pick that front wheel up fairly easily with just a bit of a shift of the body weight. So it hasn't completely lost its kind of agile line selection, line ability because of that kind of compromise in the geometry. I'm also testing the size medium, as I mentioned, which gives it a more reasonable reach. I think you do have to be careful as a consumer to make sure that you end up buying the right size that will fit you the best. Because if you do end up going for the sticker size that you would normally go for, chances are you're going to end up with a longer reach than you're used to, which means that your body movement has less influence on the handling of the bike or the weight balance on the bike. So you need to move more to give the same input. Obviously, the flip side of that is that you get more natural stability. If you get tired by the end of an enduro stage, your body movement then affects the bike less, which means you can be a little bit sloppier with your handling and the bike's going to carry on its sort of path a little bit easier. But yeah, I digress. We need to really be careful with the sizing of the bike. Make sure you kind of either have a sit on one or consult the geometry table just to make sure you end up on the right size. On the medium, which is the right size for me, in my opinion, this thing is really, truly awesome. The chassis is quite stiff. I tested it with a fairly stiff set of carbon wheels at one point, and I wouldn't have said it was the most comfortable ride. However, they do spec it with DT Swiss's EX511 wheel set, which has a nice little bit of compliance to it and makes the overall handling package really predictable on the off-camber terrain. It gives you a little bit of compliance just to help it track, help you find the grip, and as an overall package, it is really truly awesome for attacking rough and rugged trails, but also I've been riding a huge amount of bike park out here in the Alps on the bike, and it's taken everything in stride. It really is awesome. That suspension in the descending mode is really kind of nice and supportive. You get a little bit of a platform to push off of. It holds itself in the corners and in the big compressions. It's nice and progressive at the end as well. I think there's only been a couple of times that I've felt any notion of a bottom out on it. And off the top, it's not ultra plush. It's not sort of quite as terrain ironing as the most sort of plush, high pivot, coil sprung bikes out there. That said, it's not overly harsh on the square edges. It doesn't firm up a lot under braking. So as a general handling package, as long as you're not looking for the absolute softest off the top kind of sofa of a bike, this thing will still be absolutely fine for you. And I think for the most part, as an enduro race bike, that ultra plush off the top is not quite necessary. Some may disagree, but I think Canyon really nailed the balance on this bike for pushing hard, for attacking race stages, and for kind of getting down the hill as quick as possible. Let's talk about that Shapeshifter technology. It is just awesome. It's so easy to use. You can use it after the first couple of times without looking at the bar at all. It's just like having another dropper lever, which I assume after a few rides you guys don't look at the bar anymore. It's no different to that. It's really nice and ergonomic, I think. It may look a little bit cluttered on the bars, but for me, I'm not looking at the bars when I'm riding. I'm looking at the trail ahead. I don't think it's too much of a problem. And in terms of how easy it is to use, I have been using this thing so much. It is so much easier, so much it encourages you to use it a lot more than I'd expected it to, because it is just, you click it, you unweight the bike, it's in the high mode, the pedal mode, and then you click it again. And the way that I have it set up with 100 PSI in the Shapeshifter shaft, it just falls in under my body weight, just falls into that descending mode. So you know straight away, as soon as you've released it, you've got all that 160mm travel, super plush suspension. But because of that, because of how easy it is to use, it does definitely climb better when you're in the pedal mode. You get a more central upright seating position, you get a firmer platform, you get less travel. But also, because it's so easy to use and because it makes the bike more agile, makes it firmer off the top, you find yourself using it on the descents a lot as well, especially on some of the trails around here where you're going from really rough and rugged, steep, gnarly terrain, and then you'll maybe go onto a little pump section where you need slightly quicker handling, slightly firmer platform. You just flick it into the pedal mode, or the trail mode, what I would like to call it, and the bike's more efficient, more agile, more fun for those kind of bits, quicker. And then as soon as you find yourself dropped into a gnarly bit again, it's easier to get out of the pedal mode than it is to drop a dropper, I reckon. You just release it, and then if you have it set up right, it'll fall in as soon as you hit either the first compression, or for me, just with my body weight. So I've been thoroughly impressed. It has proved to hold up super good as well. I've been using this thing for like 3 months of getting a lot of trail time. I've had no issues with it, apart from one time, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it was nothing to put me off of the system. Yeah, it's awesome. You should really try it. Now that I think compared to the previous generation of Strive, where the downhill geometry wasn't quite, you could have climbed with the downhill geometry quite happily before, aside from the slacker seat tube angle. Now, because the downhill mode is so slack and so downhill focused, you've now got that trail mode, which you can flick it in super easy, kind of make the bike way more playful, more agile. It's truly awesome. In case you didn't really catch my gist so far, I've been blown away by this thing, and I think it is the best bike that I've ever tested. However, it isn't perfect. There are a couple of things that I'd like to chat about. Number one being the Shapeshifter. Drawbacks. Yes, it gives you a dual personality on the bike that makes it a real pleasure to ride. However, you've got an extra air shaft that needs to be serviced every couple of 100 hours. You've got 2 sets of bushings that the system kind of pivots around and runs on. It's adding more complexity. It's the kind of complexity that shouldn't cause many issues, but it's the issue that if it does go wrong, you know, you're not going to be able to just go into any old bike shop and pick up a Shapeshifter to plug back in. You do need to either wait for Canyon to send you one or send your Shapeshifter air shaft to a Fox service center to get it serviced. It's adding a little extra complexity for the privateer racer who may be thinking this is the bike of their dreams. That it's a consideration. It's not necessarily something that I think is going to go wrong often. Certainly Canyon has told me that they have been seeing very, very few issues with these Fox units now that they've been moved to Fox manufacturing them. So it's probably not a huge concern, but it's worth noting that it's more complex than if it didn't exist at all, of course. The only other issue I've had with the entire bike is the tire spec that they give you with it. I think if you're enduro racing and you're running Exo Plus tires, unless you weigh 40 kilos or have the most incredibly smooth line choice out there, you're an idiot. They are just not tough enough, I reckon, for rough and rugged and rocky especially terrain. The first ride I had on this thing, I put a little hole into the back tire. I then was like, you know what, it's not worth it. I swapped them out. I added a good bit of weight to the bike. So, I mean, I am a heavy guy. I do push hard. I am kind of sketchy when I send it into rock gardens, but I don't think Exo Plus tires are fit for this. But it's a set of tires. You swap them out about as often as anything else, if not more. So it's just one of those things. You're probably going to have to buy the bike and buy another set of tires to go on it straight away, in my opinion. But otherwise, the package, it is really dialed. I like their integrated cockpit as much as I don't love the aerodynamic headset spacers. They've worked perfectly good. The, you know, XTR brakes, XTR mech, it's all been awesome. The suspension package is awesome too. It's an absolutely dialed bike, ready to hop on with some fresh tires and race. And I think really kudos to Canyon for sticking that kind of spec on a carbon frame that is pretty damn light and taking it in at the kind of £6,000, $7,300 mark. Although it's by no means a small amount of money, I think it's pretty damn good value for what you're getting with the Canyon Strive CFR. Well then, there you have it. That has been the Canyon Strive CFR, and in case you haven't already figured it out, I'm a huge fan of this bike. I think it is, without a doubt, one of the best enduro bikes on the market, not only as a race bike, but also as an all-around trail enduro crusher. Bike park laps, long pedally days in the high alpine, it'll eat it all up, and although it's not absolutely perfect, it comes pretty damn close. And I've really been blown away, and I'm gonna be sad to give it back, that's for sure. I hope you guys have enjoyed checking out this video. Do drop us a comment, let us know your thoughts on this bike, if you agree with me, or if you disagree with me and you think the Shapeshifter is useless, let us know. Give us a like if you've enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to see more awesome videos on awesome bikes like this. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. I hope to catch you out on the trails.